Thank you, Chairnet. Let's go. I think the slide's okay. I wanted to go one before, but I think we're okay. So thanks so much. It's great to see everyone here today. As Chairnet stated, my name is Amy Gonzalez, and I am the project manager for the Disability Employment Technical Assistance Center, or the DETAC for short. I am a Hispanic woman, middle-aged, and I am speaking today from my home office. In the background, you will see a bookshelf. I also have some pink carnations in a vase right next to a fish tank. Today, I am wearing a black dress with a button-down cardigan. I have my hair pulled back, and I am wearing black glasses, and my hair color is dark brown. I will cover today's objectives, and I will do a brief speaker introductions, and then we will turn it over to our presenters. And just to ping for our technical producer, please, I believe you need to pin me and to pin the presenters so that others can see us talking. So thanks for that. So let's go over today's objectives. We have a wonderful presentation. We have some dynamic speakers. We are going to cover what brain injury is and how it creates unique needs through assistive technology. We're going to learn more about how assistive technology programs assess sensory, physical, social, emotional, and cognitive challenges. In addition to that, we're going to learn more about the process of analyzing, determining, and how to figure out what specific support that people with brain injury need before and during work to keep that job. We're also going to go into detail about some case studies of how and when assistive technology is applied to help folks with brain injury. And then what we're going to do is our speakers are going to help you get a better understanding of some of the resources that can be leveraged when supporting folks with brain injury and employment. Next slide, please. So I am pleased to introduce Maria Crowley, who is the Professional Development Director at the National Association of State Injury Administrators. Next up, we have David Baker, who is the Director of the Missouri Assistive Technology Program. We also have Ashley McElroy, who is the DETAC Director at the Alabama Department of Rehabilitation Services. And then we're joined by James Whitney, who is the AT clinician at the Maryland Assistive Technology Program. So with that, I'll turn it over to our lead moderator, Nasha. Maria, please take it away, and we hope you enjoy the presentation.
Amy, thank you so much, and all the DETAC staff for having us participate on this webinar today. We hope to give you some solid information, some take-home answers and case studies that you can share with staff where you are. And of course, you can always contact us later on if you need additional information. I am Maria Crowley with NASHA. I am a white and Hispanic woman who has silver hair and black glasses, and I'm wearing a purple floral shirt. Just to do some level setting, in case you're not familiar with brain injury, I wanted to just share a little bit about that with you. Acquired brain injury is the umbrella term that we use, or ABI, that includes traumatic brain injury and also non-traumatic brain injury. And you can see some of the differences here. One is caused by external events, with some examples here for you. One is caused by internal events. Generally, however, we just say brain injury to include both TBI and non-TBI. Next slide, please. And we wanted to be sure and give you some examples of challenges that individuals can experience either temporarily or permanently, longer term challenges post-injury. Because your brain is the home of just about everything about you, brain injury can impact just about anything about you as well. So here's a list of some physical kinds of challenges. Many of these are very common with brain injury, headaches in particular, and changes in sleep, and so on. Cognitive challenges often impact employment the most because that frontal lobe creates executive function, and when that gets damaged, it has a lot of impact on how you are able to work. Last but not least, social and emotional challenges also factor into difficulties with employment. So you can see some examples of all of these here and how they might interfere and do interfere with employment. Next slide. This will give you some ideas of how those kinds of challenges may exhibit themselves when somebody is looking for work or trying to stay employed. They may experience some difficulty remembering or learning new information that's shared with them, some inconsistencies in their performance, maybe some challenges in generalizing to new situations, less follow through on tasks, and maybe just less attention, more confusion and fatigue that other individuals may exhibit with employment. So you can definitely see how that can be impacted. Next slide. And I certainly want to make a case for thinking through assistive technology related to job retention, because as you can see, most people who experience a brain injury are of working age, and a third of those individuals are currently employed, and we would like to keep them employed. But brain injury does get in the way of employment. So just think about that as you work with individuals. And last slide. I'm not going to read through these, but these are some very universal strategies that can be applied when someone is looking for work or trying to maintain work that you can employ as a provider of services that may and do work for anyone, but certainly have some success in working with people with brain injury. Next slide, and then next slide, and I'm going to turn it over to James.
All right, thank you so much. If you could go one more slide forward, please. Awesome, thank you. And I am James Whitney. I'm speaking right now, and I am a Caucasian male with brown hair. It's like about ear length. I'm wearing a headset currently and a gray polo that has our Maryland logo on the corner pocket. But anywho, so carrying on here. So we're talking about accommodations. And so the title of this slide is how does assistive technology help with job retention? And assistive technology would be one type of accommodation that you are entitled to. We all have the right to a reasonable accommodation also within the workplace. Other accommodations might look like job restructuring. So kind of changing what those job just kind of requirements or demands might look like. And then within that, it could be a procedural change within a certain task or a job duty that you do have. So kind of just altering the tasks and the procedure of how you accomplish them. Having slight alterations might make someone more, able to complete those tasks. Also providing assistive technology devices that we will get all into today during this presentation, and kind of what that might look like with all different kinds of low tech, like slightly more simplistic accommodations, all the way to more high tech things as well. And just a note as well is, always start simple and increase complexity as needed, and just as the competence is also there for. So it's not very helpful to give a employee or any individual to any technology that's out of their wheelhouse, is not very helpful. So always start simple and increase complexity as needed. And we can go next slide. So I have some examples here of what physical and sensory accommodations might look like, and we kind of did low tech and high tech just to kind of outline what those might look like. So for accessing a computer, let's say, what would low tech assistive technology solutions look like? And that could be something like slip-on typing aids. And those are actually slip-on aids that can go around your hands or your wrists or even forearms. And that kind of give you a stylus of sorts that you can actually use to access the keyboard. So if you don't have that fine motor control of actually pressing the keys and isolating those digits or fingers, then having a slip-on typing aid that's more rigid and gives you that kind of stylus type of accommodation might allow you to type more accurately. and also just give you more ability to type at all. Other kind of lower tech accommodations might look like changing the type of mouse or peripherals that the individual is interfacing with. So I know that's not exactly low tech, maybe that kind of, also fits more in the mid tech range, but, different types of joysticks. Or I'm sorry, mice, which could be a joystick mouse or a trackball mouse, or just other types of mice that might make it a little bit more easy to engage with the computer, or large print keys or keyboards for anyone who's visually impaired, or also, again, with that fine motor control, having larger keys gives you a bigger point of access to be able to press those keys. And then higher tech devices might look like, a wearable mouse that I can wear on, I can wear it across my face, or using eye gaze to actually interface with the computer with my eye movements, or head mice, or even voice access with a dictation and using our smart assistants like Siri or OK Google or a Cortana, I know is the name of the one on Windows, and etc. So having those kind of voice access might also be helpful. And then I'm going to move on to energy conservation. So kind of what would that look like? And a office kind of setting, having forearm supports might look like a low tech adaptation for being able to help conserve, energy, is having your forearms and your upper extremities supported. That way you don't have to hold them up against gravity. It might give you a little bit more of overall energy conservation there. Also using things like a reacher to kind of reach and grab things out of your, I guess, proximal zone. So kind of giving you more access to items, further on your desk. Also headsets for phone calls. This is good for ergonomics for all of us, but also for anyone who might have to reach and grab the phone and you hold it up, over time, over, days, hours, months of having a job position that requires a lot of that, then it might be helpful to have a headset and have a lifter that can actually pop that off for you. So that's a couple examples of low tech. And then higher tech might be things like desks that raise and lowered. And they have those with touch pads. So you can actually, it's just a little touch screen. It can raise your desk up, lower your desk down. Also hydraulic seat lifts for transfers. So it can kind of boost you up out of your seat a little bit, and it makes it a little bit more easy to go from sitting to standing. So it can help with those transfers. And then again, having those, Amazon Alexa and smart assistants for things like setting reminders and creating lists and setting alarms, and all kinds of other smart, I would say smart features as well. So having all those things can help with energy conservation. And then also the balance and fall prevention and overall movement and mobility devices can also help as well. So a low tech device might be like a walker or rollator or even a cane or a non-powered wheelchair, or even non-slip shoes or grab bars in key areas, and a non-slip mats and rolling cart that I can push around things that I need with me. I can push them on a rolling cart instead of having to carry them in my arms and my hands as well. And then high-tech adaptations for all of those things might look like power wheelchairs, power scooters that even have a swivel chair to help with transferring on and off other surfaces. Elevators can even be, considered assistive technology. And lastly, sensory regulation, it might look like low tech, could be something as easy as dimming the lights, or even noise canceling headphones that can kind of help someone just not be as bothered by, loud noises and bright lights and things like that. Can certainly spark headaches and make it hard to overall focus and things like that. And then higher tech sensory regulation, it could look like, putting on relaxing music, or even the sounds of waves or heartbeats. And it could even be inverting the colors on your computer. So now my whites on my computer are now black, and my black also colors are now white. So that can help offer a little bit lower light as far as all the white light of your computer staring back at you. It can kind of dim that down, and also offer a little bit higher contrast, having white text against a dark background as well. And with that, I will pass it over to Ashley, and she will carry us forward.
Thank you so much. All right. So on the next slide, I will be going over some cognitive examples of assistive technology to help with some issues that someone might experience with cognitive effects of traumatic brain injury. I'm Ashley McElroy, and I am in my mid-30s. I have shoulder-length blonde hair, and James and I are going to be swapping back and forth, so you'll hear both of our voices here in the next few slides. So I wanted to give some low-tech and high-tech examples as well, like James did, and we want to emphasize that the reason that we're providing both low-tech and high-tech options is because it's important to try low-tech options first, especially when you're dealing with traumatic brain injury. You want to make sure that you're not overwhelming any individual with high technology that is difficult to learn. So we want to start with low-tech, and sometimes that works just as well, if not better, than going straight to high-tech options. So with note-taking, some low-tech options would be just as simple as carrying a notebook with a pen around and making that simple. It could be pocket size, or it could go in a little shoulder bag. High tech would be taking that more advanced, looking at the realm of having audio synced note taking. And there's some incredible technology out there to do audio that is synced with your handwritten or typed notes, as well as video notes. That's another option that you can do, especially with smart technology that we put in our pockets nowadays called iPhones. For routines and scheduling, low-tech options would be something like a poster board with photos that are sequenced for tasks, doing checklists or hard copy planners. Now, I know some pretty good advocates for assistive technology who will still say use a paper planner, because digital planners can be kind of overwhelming for individuals. But high tech would be using a digital planner if that's something that functions better for that person and they like using digital technology. Then a planner on their iPhone or their computer might work better for them. Video modeling apps are really cool tools to use for helping someone remember how to do tasks, especially when they need to watch someone perform that task. And remote monitoring services. So there are services out there that you can pay on a subscription basis that will call and check in with individuals. They can provide video telephone calls with an individual to make sure they're on the right track or remembering how to do tasks. For communication, low tech would be an interactive picture board or a notebook. High tech would lean more towards using like a voice amplifier that consists of a microphone and a speaker that amplifies a person's voice if they've lost some ability to amplify their speech. Communication apps, we can put those on computers, tablets, phones. Text to speech would be where you're having text read aloud to you. That is a form of communication. If somebody can type in on their cell phone what they would like to say, then they can use text to speech to speak it out loud. And then also moving towards the dedicated augmentative communication devices would be the more high-tech route. For reading and writing, we'd like to look at color overlays and specialty pens. Those are just little inexpensive tools that can be on hand at someone's desk. Or we could go high tech and use text to speech or speech to text. That's two different things. So text to speech is where you're going to listen to text read aloud, whereas speech to text is where you're speaking to your device and it's going to type it out for you. And there are lots of options for that are built into our devices nowadays, but it is more high tech because it's difficult to learn. And then also using grammar and spell checker software, word prompting and word prediction, and mind mapping is one of my favorite tools to help someone really figure out how they would like to write out what they're trying to communicate. And so next, we would like to go over some case studies to give you some real life examples of what we have worked on. So if you could go to the next slide, please. And then our first example is going to be from the Alabama Department of Rehabilitation Services. You will hear me say ADRS. So I am with ADRS. And this is an example that we did for an individual who performed custodial work. Well, her processes changed at work, which made it difficult for her to remember how to do the more high-tech things that they were asking her to do, which was submit some documentation on a computer, and then she had to use a fax machine and copy machine. So we wanted to start low tech because this individual did not have prior experiences with digital technology. And so we would not want to implement high tech for her. So it was as simple as taking images of the devices that she was having to operate. We took pictures, we printed those out, and then we created little highlighted guides on her printed pictures that she could use to reference what buttons she needed to push on the devices. We just put that into a binder for her, and she was able to flip through her binder to follow the steps on how to perform that task. And on the next example is another low-tech example from ADRS. Next slide, please. So this is another low-tech example because we did not incorporate any digital technology into this. So this individual already had accommodations at work, and when their manager changed, their job test required for them also changed. They were required to scrub the drive-through at a fast food restaurant, and this individual had a visual impairment that made it difficult to see the oil stains on the drive-through that they were supposed to scrub. And in this particular environment, it would not have been appropriate to use high tech. This was an environment where they were going to be outside in a parking lot and using a water hose and a bucket of soapy water. And so we wanted to make sure that they were just able to use a low-tech option that they could pull out of the storage building. And so we attached these guides to the edge of a cart that helps them carry their supplies. And the edge of the cart rolls against where we put the little guides, it rolls against the curb. So the distance that is spaced from the curb to the opposite side of the cart is where the individual needed to start scrubbing the drive-through. And he knew to scrub from the edge of that cart about 2 to 3 feet over to hit those oil stains in the drive-through. So now I'm going to turn it over back to James and let him give you an example from his program.
Yep, perfect. And this is James Whitney speaking again. And we can go next slide, please. Yep, so I'm going to carry on with another example of a low-tech solution for an ADA accommodation. And this is something that I was able to help a employee of a surrounding university in Maryland with. And this is through the Maryland Assistive Technology Program, as where I work as the AT clinician, and that is Maryland's Tech Act program. And I'll get more into that later. So an ADA coordinator from this college had reached out to me about one of the groundskeepers had experienced a traumatic brain injury, and they used the golf cart to drive around the campus and help maintain, you know, the plants and foliage and any other jobs that they would have. As this person's job duties changed a lot day to day, just kind of depended on what was going on and what maintenance needed to take place. But the overall concern was the ADA coordinator had expressed to me was that the individual had reduced peripheral vision and awareness, and they were concerned with safety driving that golf cart around the campus and just making sure they didn't hit any other vehicles or put themselves in any harm's way, or other people as well on the campus. And that was one of their major concerns. And after speaking with them and this employee, we had talked about a few solutions, and that was putting bright tape, you know, so starting really low tech is like putting bright tape on either side of the golf cart to kind of signify, hey, you know, just to kind of help with turning their head and just, you know, physically actually turning your neck and head so that you can see on either side of your peripheral vision. And we didn't know if that was quite enough. So then we went one step further and we added mirrors. So a lot of golf carts, it just depends, I guess. They don't all come with mirrors. A lot of them don't come with any mirrors at all. So we added, you know, again, this is very low tech. It was clip-on mirrors that exist. And then we were able to add clip-on mirrors to either side, so left and right clip-on mirrors. as well as one for them to look straight back in the rear view as well. So with turning their head to the side, as well as the added bonus of the mirrors, then, you know, with the ADA coordinator, myself, and the employee, we all felt like these solutions were sufficient enough to help the individual drive around the campus safely, see their surroundings, and avoid, you know, any pedestrians, students, or other just kind of obstacles as well. So this was a success story that this individual was able to use these accommodations and continue their employment at this college in Maryland. And with that, I will go next slide, and I'll pass it back to Ashley.
Thank you, James. Okay, so now we're going to move on to some high-tech examples. And this example is an individual that needed to access their computer during the day. So the image that you see on the screen is an individual that's using a power wheelchair, and they are targeting an iPad that is mounted to their wheelchair using a high-tech mounting arm called a mountain mover, which actually has a power joint on it so that the individual with limited physical ability will be able to move their mount to their person or away from their person without any significant help. So the reason we wanted this individual to have all of their devices mounted to their wheelchair was because they wanted to be independent in college, and they wanted to be able to go around campus and, you know, access their devices. And this would apply in an employment situation too. We want individuals to have access to their devices throughout the day without having to rely on another individual to set up their devices for them. And so otherwise this person would have required a personal attendant to help set up their devices. But these wheelchair mounts are fantastic, and they can be secured to the wheelchair, and then the device is secured to the mount so that they have a reliable method of positioning their devices throughout the day. And then we're able to connect their device to their power chair joystick and use their joystick on their wheelchair as a mouse. That's always a fantastic option for somebody who uses a wheelchair for a power chair for mobility, to pair that joystick with their device, because if they can drive their wheelchair, then they can control their mouse. And then we also provided them a portable battery charger to make sure that that device would be able to stay charged throughout the day, and they would not have to access a power outlet throughout the day. Okay, now I think James has another example for you.
Yep, I sure do. If we can go next slide, and I will give one more example of accommodations. So over here, this is James Whitney speaking again. So I have kind of a combination of high and low tech, as accommodations can oftentimes be many things. So it doesn't always have to just be, you know, any one solution. It can be a variety of solutions that work all together to enhance all different aspects of whatever a person might be doing on the job. So anywho, a client reached out to me, and this was a client directly reaching out this time around. It wasn't the ADA coordinator, although we did end up kind of you know, bringing everybody into the loop after this overall consultation took place. But this person experienced a TBI, and they were a theater professor and a playwright at a nearby university. And they spent a lot of time on the computer with writing, editing, screenplay, you know, and so on and so forth. And how they expressed their symptoms to me was they experienced increased fatigue, just a generalistic, just overall becoming more fatigued more easily than they were accustomed to previously. And they had a decreased fine motor control also as a result of the injury. And that affected their ability to write and overall navigate a computer, not just writing, but just getting on the computer, but also writing and so forth. So we were kind of putting our heads together as what accommodations could allow this person to continue writing, editing, teaching, grading papers, and so forth, which in today's day and age is almost all of it's on the computer. So what we were able to do was a low-tech solution, was adding forearm supports. And a forearm support, as you can see in this top left image over here, It basically clips onto a desk. It has like a vice grip type of clamp, so you can clamp it onto the desk, and then it's got a swinging kind of arm that kind of swings out and lots of different movement. It has a lot of freedom of movement. But basically I can sit my forearms into the little slot holders for your arms. And that kind of holds them up against the table. So while I'm mousing or typing, I can still keep my forearms locked into this forearm support. And that takes a lot of the weight and gravity off my shoulders and my elbows and kind of all that. So I don't have to worry so much about holding my arms up in space, as I can let them rest and I can do everything else with my fingers a little bit more, I would say easily, but it offers a higher focus of my concentration onto what I'm doing with my fingers and my fine motor control, as opposed to also trying to hold my arms up. So having the forearm supports was kind of step one, and just kind of helping them out overall. And then step two was kind of a two-part step two. The first part of step two, we were like, let's change how you interact with the computer. And that was the mouse. So we did offer a solution of using a joystick mouse, which is like a joystick on a power wheelchair. It's almost the same exact thing, but as a mouse. So I can hold that joystick down. I can hold it down all the way left, and it'll move the mouse across the screen towards the left, and I can hold it down on the right, and then vice versa. It would also move that mouse across the screen towards the right. So I don't have to do all this windshield wiper motion of my arm, forearm, and elbow while I'm mousing around the computer. I can just gently move this joystick mouse, and that'll move the mouse across the computer. So we did offer that as kind of a mid-tech solution, as well as a larger keyboard, as we were talking about the fine motor control deficits as a result of a traumatic brain injury. So having a larger keyboard allowed this individual to I would say more accurately type on that keyboard with larger keys. They have a larger surface area to type on. But after trying all of those out, the individual still experienced some just overall fatigue, and they were like saying that long days on the computer, even with all those, still didn't quite help enough, or that there might be a solution that could also to help out more. So we did try a different mouse, which is a little bit more high tech. It's called the Glass Ouse, and this type of mouse is a wearable mouse. In this image bottom right, that there is an individual wearing a glass ouse, and this is basically like it's called the Glass Ouse because it's part glasses and part mouse. So it's worn across your face like a pair of glasses would be worn, and there's a sensor on this that it has a sensor that's used as the mouse sensor. So if I turn my head left or turn my head right, it'll move the mouse across the screen. And with the bite switch that is at the bottom of his person's jaw over here, that the user can actually use that bite switch to actually be their left click. So instead of having to click and drag or to even double click on like a web browser, let's say, I could do that with a bite switch that I can place in my mouth, and I can actually bite on that. So it can give my arms a break while I use the Glass Ouse. And I can use that, and I can get on the computer. I can do essentially everything with this. I can even type on it with an on-screen keyboard. It might take a lot longer to type, but I certainly can. So we kind of had a hybrid model of solutions for this individual, with the forearm supports, the other keyboards and mouse, and then a more high-tech mouse that was actually wearable. And with all those three things combined, it was positive feedback that his professor was able to continue grading and writing and all of that good stuff. So I will pass it back to Ashley after that. Yep.
That was a really good example of how high and low tech could be implemented. So our next example is from ADRS, and it's on the next slide. And this is also a situation where we did some high tech and low tech. So this individual works at an event center. They're stationed at a reception counter, and they're selling tickets to the services for this center, and they use a register. The individual uses a wheelchair for mobility, and they're unable to stand, but the reception desk is at standing height, and other staff position the equipment further back on the counter because they're standing and they would like it pushed away from the edge. This individual also has difficulty remembering processes for all the different transactions that they have to perform at this center. So the solution was that we worked closely with their vocational rehabilitation counselor, their job coach, and the AT program to provide and implement accommodations. So we recommended a Vela electric stool. So this individual couldn't stand for periods of time, but they could transfer from their wheelchair to a stool. And rather having a standard stool, which would have required some support from another individual, we were able to provide this electric stool that they could transfer into at chair height. And then with an electric button, they're able to raise themselves. So that got them up to the standing height counter. However, we still had the issue with the equipment being pushed to the back of the counter quite frequently by the other staff. And so we had an XY table. An XY table is typically used with CCTVs for individuals with low vision who would like to move their documents in an XY motion. And we had one in our AT lending library that we trialed with this individual. We put it underneath the register and we evaluated whether or not that concept would work to help them move and position their equipment whenever they were on the clock. And so once we determined that that concept did work, we were able to recommend an appliance rolling tray, which suited the application better. And so that was a more low-tech option for the individual, which was paired with the high-tech option of the Vela electric stool. And we also used the Avail app. So if you remember me talking about the video modeling apps, that is, Avail is an example of that. And we were able to take pictures and put a sequence of tasks into an app for this individual so that they wouldn't have to constantly rely on their job coach or their manager to remind them how to do sequences of tasks. All right, so I think James is going to carry us into the next section. If we can go to the next slide.
Yep. All right. Perfect. So I'm going to talk about resources and who can help. So this next piece will kind of talk about like various state resources and so forth. So it could be things like TBI programs. It could be like the National Brain Injury Association, or even NASHA. It could be vocational rehab services as well. So the job accommodation networks. And so forth. And it could even be assistive technology programs like the Maryland AT program is Maryland's, as well as there's 55 other ones in the nation as well, including territories like DC and Puerto Rico. So every state does have one, as well as territories. So there are AT programs that can also help you out with trying out AT and maybe getting a consultation and overall learning more about what's out there. But with that, we can go next slide and we'll talk about Alabama.
Yeah, so I'm going to get you started and I'm just going to kind of go through this pretty quickly. Alabama's assistive technology program is housed under ADRS. We have 4 major divisions under our agency, and it's early intervention, children's rehab services, vocational rehab, and SAIL. And on the next slide, we will talk about some special programs of ADRS. The Rehabilitation Engineering and Assistive Technology program goes in and creates custom solutions for individuals with disability and applying assistive technology. We also have a traumatic brain injury program within our agency that provides comprehensive support for those who have experienced traumatic brain injury. And that's at any age, it's not age restrictive. And then we have our AT ACT program, which is what I'm under, which is striving to increase and improve assistive technology services across the state. And on the next slide, we will talk about some of the AT-ACT program services that we do here. We have a lending library, and we're still working on developing that. We have a demonstration center coming soon to Birmingham, Alabama, so individuals can experience assistive technology hands-on. We do have durable medical equipment recycling through community partners. We provide assistive technology training for organizations, and we work closely with staff who provide direct services to ADRS consumers and non-ADRS consumers, and we're providing information and consultation on AT and services, and provide suggested referrals for individuals to contact other AT services. Okay, next. So that special program that I told you about, the Rehabilitation Engineering and Assistive Technology, the reason I want you to know about that is because this is how Alabama does it. If individuals in Alabama needed an evaluation for assistive technology, this is a fantastic program under our agency. So individuals could apply for services for ADRS, and then they could be referred to our Rehab Engineering and Assistive Technology program. Our services are free to ADRS consumers, and they provide AT evaluations in school, home, and work environments. They also have Retaining a Valued Employee program, which helps consumers who are valued employees maintain and retain their jobs. They also provide home modification assessments and assist with implementing the AT. They can adapt or modify equipment or design custom technology solutions. All right, next. And now we're going to pass it back to James, and he's going to tell you about how Maryland works.
Yep, absolutely. So this is James Whitney speaking again, and I'm coming at you live from the Maryland Assistive Technology Program. And like I was saying, we are Maryland's Tech Act program. And for anyone who's not quite familiar with the Tech Act, it was part of the ADA that was passed that requires every state to have a Tech Act program. So every state does have one. And we are a federally funded program that can basically increase access to assistive technology services. And all of us might operate a little bit differently from one another. So anything I say, it's directly about Maryland, it may be slightly different from state to state, but overall, we do have all the same data that we are reporting on. So our guidelines will be more or less the same, but the exact services we offer might be slightly different from one another. But essentially what people can do is reach out to us and schedule a consultation. And I am an occupational therapist as well as my background and my training. So I sit down with clients and individuals who have disabilities, or it could be a family member, it could be a caregiver, and it could also be OTs or PTs or SLPs or special education teachers. So it doesn't have to always be the individual who has a disability. It could be somebody who works with individuals who have disabilities, or a family member as well. And I can basically sit down with them, have a consultation, and talk about their history with disability. Is this progressive? Is this acute? Is this, an injury that you just sustained recently, or is this something that's been going on for a while? I'll also talk to them about their history with assistive technology. If they've tried anything at all, it's always good to know where someone's coming from. And if not, I can certainly talk to them about the options. And then I can, and then also we have a whole library full of AT devices and products. So I can demonstrate a number of products to them right then and there, and saying, here's this and this, and here's how they work. I can allow them to try them out, and we can loan out devices to people for 30 days at a time. So it gives individuals a chance to try things out, take them home, essentially take it on a test drive, so to speak, so that, it's always good to know if something works for you prior to buying it or purchasing it. So we're basically a place to come and learn more about what's out there, trying it out in real time with somebody who knows how it works, and then having the option to take it home or take it to work or take it to school, and try it out in a real setting where you're doing real tasks and activities is the best way to really find out if something's a good fit for you or not. Because even if it's not a good fit, that's also good information to have, as it'll help narrow down your choices going forward, and not have to sit and think about that device any longer. If you know it's not a good fit, then toss it to the other side and let's try something new. So it's a great way to learn and try things out all in real time, and it's totally free, is how we operate in Maryland. Totally free service. You just have to reach out and we'll schedule you a consultation, and try to get you in ASAP. And I'll go next slide, please. And a facet of what we do, we also have a financial loan program. And I know every state's going to vary with how they do these types of things, so I won't sit here too long. But I would certainly ask your AT Act programs if they have any low interest financial loans available. Maybe they do. Also, maybe don't. But loans do exist out there, whether it's a bank loan or it's from some other third party, that you can get low interest financing. Hopefully low interest, but you can get financing is an option for getting assistive technology devices. And we do have a program in Maryland called the ATLP that is able to loan anywhere from $500 to $70,000, kind of, which all depends on the application process, and there is income qualifications and things like that as well. But there is loans that are available that can help people purchase assistive technology products. And I'll go next slide again, please. And we also have a high-tech reuse center as well. So as we have our demo and loan center that is DETAC, we also have a donation-based program as well that is it totally operates off donations. So if anyone in the state of Maryland has old AT devices that they no longer need for any reason or another, then we actually have a place that they're able to donate them, and we can clean them up and refurbish them if needed, and then we can give those out to other people. So we do have high-tech reuse as well. So it's something to kind of look for in your respective state, would be to see if there's any reuse programs that are donation-based and that you might be able to get free or a very low-cost devices as well. And I'll go next slide again. And this is just our last part of the high-tech AT reuse program, is that there's actually another program, sorry, it isn't the same program, that is all based on durable medical equipment. So at DETAC, and again, every state's going to operate a little bit differently, so I won't go too far into this, but DETAC actually doesn't do anything with it doesn't do anything with like durable medical equipment. So anything like wheelchairs, walkers, rollators, bedside commodes, hospital beds and so forth. We don't actually do anything with that stuff. So you might have to find another agency or organization that can help with getting that equipment. In Maryland, other places and other states might do more with a durable medical equipment. And I'll go next slide. And I will pass it over to David.
All right. Thank you very much, James and Ashley. That was a phenomenal amount of information. I'm David Baker. I'm Director of Missouri Assistive Technology, and I am a white male with glasses and gray hair wearing a nice springy purple shirt here today. And I want to share in my couple of minutes that I have here just sort of a different take. We at Missouri Assistive Technology do a lot of the same things that were outlined by Ashley and James in Maryland and in Alabama. But this was a project I want to share with everybody that's a little bit different take on how to approach assistive technology for individuals with brain injury. As we've just seen, there are a ton of great options out there in the world of assistive technology that can benefit folks with brain injury to increase, to maintain, or improve their functional capabilities. But it can be super overwhelming. So, and as Maria showed us earlier, there are a number of different ways that brain injury will manifest itself. So if we move to the next slide, we tried to explore in the process of exploring new ways to present assistive technology to individuals with brain injury. And so we created a sort of a partnership between the Institute for Human Development, which is our USED, and our Department of Health and Senior Services, their adult brain injury program, plus us, Missouri Assistive Technology, to explore some new delivery methods. So if we move to the next slide. And so the whole idea was, how could we tailor assistive technology to support individuals with TBI? And let's actually skip a couple of slides since we're kind of running out of time here. And so we set up a program where we tested some kits, and they were based around executive function disorders. And Maria had outlined that in one of the slides that she had earlier. And this is an area that oftentimes individuals with brain injury struggle with. And so we set up we recruited a number of individuals around the state and found some partners in the terms of case managers. And we did a pre-survey and a post-survey, and then we distributed these toolkits to see how effective the devices in them were to address some of the issues around executive function that people with brain injury experience. So moving on to the next slide. So what these kits were comprised of was a series of actually 5 or 6 devices, depending on how you look at it, that go from the low end of the technology scale to the high end. And these were all again, built around the idea of executive function disorder, but in particular, emotional regulation. So light therapy lamp, robotic dog, which were both low-tech items, which have some benefits for helping people monitor and control their behaviors and their reactions to things. And then we also tested 3 apps that were preloaded on an iPad. Breathe to Relax, which is a sort of a meditation app to calm one down and help them be centered. PTSD Coach, which actually is developed by the Veterans Administration and has a number of features to help somebody work through PTSD. Also has some features that are really useful if somebody experiences depression. And the UCLA Mindful, which is based around mindfulness principles and can help somebody be centered, calm down, collect their thoughts, and those types of things. So each of these kits went out to the individuals, and there were 10 individuals across the state that we tested this first one with. And if we move to the next slide, just a real quick breakdown of who the participants were. Their average age was 43. About 44% of them were college graduates. Nearly all of them live with another individual, and 77% of them were Caucasian, and 67% were female. So, you know, if we do, as we continue to do this, we kind of want to change some of those demographics. But overall, 88% of the people agreed or strongly agreed that they enjoyed using the tech kit. So that gives us some indication that we're on the right path with matching people up with technology. And the same number, 88%, agreed or strongly agreed that the items in the tech kit were useful, and in particular, the robotic pets. So let's do the next slide here real quick. And so one of the things we wanted to do is see how often people engaged with these items that we put into this initial test kit. And you'll see here over on the right-hand side that almost every device that's in the kit was used about once a day. And so, you know, 2.5 was our lowest, and that was one of the apps. But the robotic pet, the Breathe to Relax app, they were used at least once a day by all the participants. So if we move on to the next slide, actually, let's skip to the next slide after that, and the next slide after that in the name of time. And we got some good feedback. The dog was enjoyed most. And when this particular individual got frustrated, they were able to interact with the robotic dog, and it helped calm them down, which are exactly the types of things we wanted to see. Another individual highlighted the Mindful app because it helped them focus, helped them get their emotions back on track, and it helped them relax. Again, we were kind of focused in on this toolkit on emotional regulation, and we saw that in the comments that individuals provided with us. So if we move on to the next slide, we also did this as a little bit of a study, and I mentioned the pre-test and the post-test, and we used the Barkley Deficits and Executive Function Scale. And so the outcomes, you know, not only was it good to know that the people who participated responded positively to the items that were in there, we also saw the impact on their executive functioning and on their self-regulation of emotion. So when we did the post-test, there was a 78% improvement in the executive functioning scores in between the pre and the post test. And in terms of, if we drill down a little more to those questions that were in the test that were around self-regulation of emotion, there was a 25% improvement through the use of the technology for those individuals. What I thought was extremely interesting was, again, kind of looking at those questions that simply had to do with self-regulation of emotion, there was a 75% decrease in the number of negative symptoms that these individuals had. So, you know, if maybe before they were prone to get super upset about something, by using the technology, it decreased those negative symptoms that they experience. And so overall, there's a 75% decrease. And then this slide, I apologize, there's a little bit of a typo there. That shouldn't be 10%, that should be 19%. And there was a 19% decrease in the number of executive functioning deficits. So overall, looking, you know, broadly at executive functioning, there was a decrease in negative deficits in that category as well. So this kind of indicates to us that, you know, these particular products are really really positive, and they do have measurable outcomes for the individuals who are utilizing them to help them kind of monitor their condition and do the best that they can. So I will stop there and I'll hand it back over to Amy because we're kind of up against the clock.
Thank you so much, David. And we are up against the clock. So I'm going to get right to as many questions as we can. The first question that I have is from Amanda. Can you share more specifically on the communication high tech? I have a few individuals that are newly employed that use a job coach to help translate what they are saying, which impacts self-esteem. So speakers, please, any suggestions on high tech communication? I'll start with Maria. If you'd like to turn on camera, and then Sharon, let's pin, please.
I would default to one of our AT professionals. Ashley, you want to take
Yeah,
that?
I was going to say the high-tech communication devices are usually evaluated by a speech therapist or a clinic team that evaluates for augmentative communication, because those typically can be purchased through insurance or another funding source. And in order to have that approved, it has to be evaluated by a specific team. So if you have resources for speech evaluation, augmentative communication in your state, that's what I would default to.
Yeah, this is David. I'll just chime in something really quick on top of what Ashley said, which was good advice. But, you know, assistive technology programs across the United States provide demonstrations. They have loan programs. You want to be a knowledgeable consumer. So, you know, before you go have an evaluation, if you need one or you meet with a speech therapist, it might be worthwhile to check those out and gain some knowledge yourself. So you're a more knowledgeable consumer when you have those experiences with a professional.
And unless I hear differently, it sounds very much to me like AT services are available to TBI, non-TBI, veterans, civilians, any other disability group. So it's universally accessible.
Thank you for that, Maria. Next slide, please, Charlotte. And one more, please. Now we will move into a brief update for the DETAC, and that is this. We have an upcoming webinar on June 13 focused on 14C. We have our partners at the National Disability Rights Network who have been researching and drafting an amazing report. So please join us for the webinar to showcase that report, the findings, the strengths, the weaknesses, the gaps, and the formal recommendations to the grantee network of how to really move the needle on employment and phasing out this antiquated practice. Next slide, please. Oh, and we just like to apologize. Apparently the link to that webinar was not added in that slide. So I'm asking the team to put that registration link in the slide now. We'd also like to give you a friendly reminder that we do offer free training, free and technical assistance. We can also offer this as it pertains to brain injury and employment. So reach out to us, reach out to NASHA. Let's get an intro call scheduled to find out your needs and see how we can help you move the needle on employment for people with brain injury. Next slide, please. And we'd also like to remind you to reach out. Please tap into our website for our publications, tap into our website for our resources. We'd also like to remind you or announce that we're going to have an office hour session specifically for this webinar. We have so many questions, such rich content today that our stellar presenters gave. So we'd like to let you know that on June 6th at 1 Eastern time, we're going to facilitate an office hour session. Please look at your emails as we will be sending the link to register for that event tomorrow. So thanks for being here today with us, and thank you to our dynamic presenters who shared amazing information, and we're so excited to be with them again on June 6th. So thank you everyone for being here today. We look forward to seeing you on June 6th and at our webinar next month. And again, thank you to NASHA and to our amazing webinar lineup of presenters today. Thanks everyone, take care.